Have you ever felt super motivated one day, ready to change your life, but just a week later that fire is gone? You're not alone. Motivation is powerful, but it's unreliable. And that's exactly why so many people quit before reaching success. In this video, we're going to uncover why discipline, not motivation, is the real secret to achieving your goals. By the end, you'll understand how to build a system that works even when your emotions don't. Let's talk about something that every single one of us has experienced. You wake up one morning full of energy, ready to take on the world. Maybe you watched a motivational video, maybe you read an inspiring story, or maybe you just felt like today is the day you finally start chasing your goals. For that moment, you feel unstoppable. You're motivated, you're fired up, and you believe nothing can get in your way. But then the next morning comes. You wake up and suddenly that fire isn't there anymore. You don't feel like going to the gym, you don't feel like working on your business idea, you don't feel like studying or pushing yourself forward. The excitement has faded, and now you're left with the same problem you've always had. How do you keep going when you don't feel like it? This is the trap of motivation. Motivation is powerful, yes, but it's temporary. It comes in waves, and just as quickly as it arrives, it disappears. And if your entire plan for success is built on waiting to feel motivated, you're in trouble. Because motivation is tied to emotions, and emotions are unstable. Think about it. Sometimes you feel energetic, sometimes you feel lazy, sometimes you're inspired, and sometimes you're tired and stressed. If your success depends on whether or not you're in the mood, then your success is already built on shaky ground. That's why the people who actually achieve greatness don't depend on motivation, they depend on discipline. Discipline is permanent. Discipline is showing up and doing the work, no matter how you feel. It's about making a decision once and sticking to it, instead of negotiating with yourself every single day. When you rely on motivation, you ask yourself, do I feel like doing this today? But when you rely on discipline, the question doesn't even exist. You do it because it asks who you are and because you've then made it a rule for yourself. Let's take an example. Imagine someone who wants to lose weight and get fit. On the first day, they feel motivated, so they go to the gym. They sweat, they work hard, they feel proud of themselves. But the next day, maybe they're sore, maybe they're tired. Maybe they don't feel motivated anymore, so they skip it. One skip turns into two turns into a week, and before they know it, they've quit. Why? Because their effort was built on motivation. Now let's look at someone else. This person decides they're going to the gym every day at 7 a.m., no matter what. They don't care if they're tired, if it's raining, if they're not in the mood. They've set the rule for themselves. 7 a.m. means gym, and so they go. Day after day, week after week. It's not glamorous, it's not exciting, but it's consistent. And months later, they've transformed their body not because they were motivated, but because they were disciplined. Discipline creates reliability. Motivation creates excuses. Discipline builds habits. Motivation builds hopes. Discipline is the difference between those who dream and those who actually achieve. And hear us the truth. The most successful people in the world aren't always motivated. The top athletes, the most accomplished entrepreneurs, the most respected leaders, they don't wake up every morning bursting with excitement to do the hard work. But they do it anyway, because they've built the muscle of discipline. Think about athletes preparing for the Olympics. Do you think they're motivated every single day for 4 years of training? Of course not. There are days they feel exhausted, days when their body hurts, days when they want to quit. But they don't quit because their success isn't tied to how they feel, it's tied to the discipline they've developed. That's the reason they stand on the podium with medals around their necks, while others are still saying, I'll start when I feel motivated. And here's something important to understand. Discipline actually outlasts motivation. At first it feels hard. It feels like you're forcing yourself. But over time, discipline turns into habit, and habit turns into identity. It becomes automatic. Brushing your teeth isn't something you debate every morning, you just do it. Why? Because it's a habit that's been burned into your daily routine. That's exactly what discipline does with your goals. Once you build it, you don't rely on fleeting motivation anymore, because the action becomes part of who you are. The reason discipline is permanent is because it doesn't care about your feelings. Motivation asks, do you feel like it? Discipline says, it doesn't matter how you feel. Motivation is like a sparkler, it burns bright for a few seconds and then dies out. Discipline is like a steady flame. It may not be flashy, but it keeps burning day after day. And that steady flame is what builds lasting success. When we look closely at the lives of successful people, one thing becomes very clear. Their greatness isn't built on random bursts of effort or occasional moments of inspiration. Their greatness is built on habits, and habits are born out of discipline. This is the cycle of success. Discipline creates habits, and habits create results. Let's start with something simple. Think about your morning routine. The way you wake up, brush your teeth, maybe have coffee or breakfast. You don't stop and think, do I feel like brushing my teeth today? You just do it. Why? Because at some point in your life you built that habit. It became automatic. That's the beauty of habits. They remove the need for constant decision-making. And when those habits are directed toward your goals, they become unstoppable forces that push you forward even when your motivation is gone. Discipline is the tool that gets you through the uncomfortable early stages, the time when your new behavior doesn't feel natural yet. At first, waking up early feels like torture. Going to the gym feels exhausting. Studying every night feels boring. But discipline keeps you going until your brain begins to accept this new routine as normal. Then it transitions from effort into habit. And once it's a habit, you don't have to fight yourself every day to keep doing it. The habit does the work for you. Consider an author writing a book. If they wait for inspiration or motivation to strike, they might write one chapter in January, another in March, and maybe half a page in June. That's not how books get written. But an author with discipline decides, I'm going to write for 2 hours every morning, no matter what. At first, it's hard. Some mornings, the words don't come easily. Some mornings, they'd rather sleep in. But because they've disciplined themselves to sit down and write, the habit forms. Over weeks and months, those small daily sessions stack up, and eventually they have a finished book, not because they were always inspired, but because their discipline created a habit of writing, and that habit produced a result. The same principle applies to fitness, to business, to relationships, even to mental growth. Small, disciplined actions become daily rituals, and those rituals build a lifestyle. For example, if you make a disciplined choice to read just 10 pages of a book every day, it doesn't feel like much in the moment. But in a year, you'll have read over 3,600 pages. That's more than a dozen books. Imagine the knowledge and insight you gain, all from a simple habit born from discipline. What's fascinating about habits is how they compound. Think of them like compound interest in finance. A small deposit doesn't make you rich, but steady, consistent deposits over time create wealth. In the same way, a single workout won't transform your body, but a year of consistent workouts will. A single hour of practice won't make you a master, but years of disciplined practice will. Habits compound into mastery, and mastery leads to success. This is where many people go wrong. They expect success to come from one big effort, one huge moment of inspiration. They wait for the perfect idea, the perfect timing, the perfect opportunity. But success isn't about one massive push. Success is about the little things you do every single day without fail. And that's only possible when discipline builds those habits for you. Think about athletes again. A professional basketball player doesn't become great because they shot hoops for 10 hours straight on one lucky weekend. They became great because they practiced every single day, thousands of shots, endless drills until it was second nature. Their success is built on habits of training, habits of discipline, habits of preparation. And when the big game comes, they don't rely on luck, they rely on the muscle memory and mental toughness their habits have created. Even outside of sports, the same truth applies. Look at successful entrepreneurs. They didn't build thriving companies overnight. They created habits of discipline, habits of planning, habits of execution, habits of consistency. They worked on their business every day, even on the days when they didn't feel like it. Over time, those habits became systems, and those systems created success. Here's something powerful to remember. Habits actually shape your identity. When you practice discipline long enough, your habits don't just change what you do, they change how you see yourself. If you read daily, you start to see yourself as a reader, a learner. If you work out daily, you start to see yourself as an athlete, someone who takes care of their body. If you build the habit of saving and investing, you start to see yourself as financially responsible. Discipline isn't just about creating habits. It's about creating a new version of yourself through those habits. And once your habits align with your identity, success becomes inevitable. You don't have to force it anymore, because the actions that create success are simply part of who you are. You don't have to motivate yourself to do them. They're automatic, like brushing your teeth. That's the true power of discipline. It doesn't just get you to take action. It transforms your actions into habits, and those habits build the foundation of your success. One of the biggest differences between people who succeed and people who quit is this. Winners don't let their emotions control their actions. Instead, they rely on systems. They don't ask themselves every morning, do I feel like doing this? They follow a system that tells them what to do, when to do it, and how to do it, no matter what mood they're in. That's what separates consistent achievers from those who only make progress in short, unpredictable bursts. Think about emotions for a second. They are unpredictable. One day you wake up full of energy, the next day you're tired. One day you feel optimistic, the next you feel overwhelmed. If your progress depends on emotions, then your success will always be inconsistent. You'll only work hard on the days when you're in a good mood, and on the days when you're stressed, sad, or unmotivated, you'll do nothing. That's why so many people start strong and then fade away. They confuse temporary excitement with a long-term plan. Now look at the people who win, the ones who build incredible careers, powerful bodies, strong relationships, and meaningful lives. They have systems in place that keep them moving forward regardless of their mood. A system could be a set routine, a daily checklist, a strict schedule, or a habit loop that removes the need to negotiate with yourself every single time. With a system, the decision is already made in advance. You don't waste energy debating whether you should work out, study, save money, or take action. The system decides for you, and all you have to do is follow it. Let's use an example. Imagine someone who wants to start a business. If they rely on emotions, they'll only work when they feel inspired. They'll brainstorm ideas when they're excited, but on the days when they feel discouraged, they won't do anything. Months go by, and their dream never moves forward. Now imagine someone else with a system. Their system might be as simple as dedicating 2 hours every evening to building their business. No excuses, no negotiations. Some days those 2 hours will feel productive, other days they'll feel like a struggle. But over time, those 2 hours add up. Week after week, month after month, progress is made. And eventually the business grows, not because they felt inspired every day, but because they followed a system. Systems also protect you from decision fatigue. Every choice you make throughout the day drains your mental energy. If you spend the whole day deciding when to work, when to eat, when to exercise, when to rest, by the end of the day you're exhausted and more likely to skip the important tasks. But with a system, you don't have to decide. The time is set, the task is set, and your only job is to show up and do it. That's why so many high performers live by strict routines. It frees their minds from constant decision-making and channels their energy into execution. Take athletes again as an example. Professional players don't say, I'll train whenever I feel like it. They have a strict schedule. They know exactly what time practice starts, what drills they'll do, how many hours they'll train. Their emotions don't get a vote in the process. That's why, even on the days when they don't feel like it, they still put in the work. The system ensures progress, and the progress leads to victories. The same thing applies to health and fitness. Someone without a system will say, I'll go to the gym when I have time, or I'll eat healthy when I feel motivated. That approach almost always fails because emotions and convenience take over. But someone with a system might decide, I work out at 7 a.m. every day, and I prep my meals every Sunday. Suddenly, their health doesn't depend on how they feel, it depends on the system they've committed to. Over time, this consistency transforms their body and their lifestyle. Even in finances, systems beat emotions. If you rely on emotions, you'll save money only when you feel like it. You'll spend when you're stressed, reward yourself when you're happy, and justify bad decisions when you're tired. But if you set up a system where a fixed percentage of your income is automatically saved or invested every month, you remove emotions from the process. The system builds wealth for you, whether you feel like saving or not. And this is the secret winners understand. They don't wait for the perfect emotional state to act. They create systems that guarantee action regardless of feelings. That's why when others quit halfway, they keep going. Systems are like an autopilot for success. They carry you forward even when your motivation fails. The truth is, emotions can lie to you. Emotions can tell you that you're too tired, that it doesn't matter today, that skipping just once won't hurt. But systems keep you honest. Systems remind you that success doesn't come from what you do occasionally, it comes from what you do consistently. Winners don't put their trust in how they feel because feelings change. They put their trust in systems because systems deliver results. So when it really comes down to it, success isn't about chasing a wave of motivation. It's about building a foundation of discipline. Because motivation will rise and fall, but discipline will carry you through the highs and the lows. Discipline is what builds habits, and those habits become the building blocks of your future. And once you've created the right habits, they compound, they multiply, and they eventually shape your entire identity. And remember, the people who win at life aren't relying on feelings, they're relying on systems. Systems that keep them consistent. Systems that protect them from excuses. Systems that move them forward whether they're inspired or not. That's the real key, turning discipline into habits and habits into systems until success becomes inevitable.